Hey everyone, it's Sami from Sami's Sweet Life, and today we just have to talk about Texas a little bit. So we did live through Snowpocalypse, and I have a lot of notes. I just have like random thoughts written down, so this might be a very jumbly video. I was thinking about doing this for Tea Tuesday, but my kid didn't go back to school until today, which is now Wednesday, so it's been a really big roller coaster of event. It's been a roller coaster of emotions. It's been very trying the last couple of weeks. It's basically been 13 days since Olivia went to school. So it's basically been 2 weeks. If you guys have seen any of the news stories, Texas had major issues and we unfortunately were caught up in it just a tiny bit. We were caught up in it enough that it was an inconvenience. There were thoughts racing through my mind at certain points like, oh my gosh, are we going to be okay? But thankfully we made it through, and it turns out the whole thing for us in our part of it, it was just an inconvenience, which shows the inequities of what happened to people, where some people can go through it, go through the ordeal and come out the other side thinking, wow, that was really horrible to have to experience, but we survived it, we came out of it, and it was just inconvenient for our family to go through it. We didn't, thankfully did not have any sort of water damage to our house. No pipes burst. We didn't lose water at any point in time, although even some of our neighbors did. We were incredibly lucky to make it through the Texas snowstorm. So I have a lot of thoughts going with this, like I said. So I'll walk you through kind of what happened for us. That was basically like the overview is, hey, we're doing fine. I want to make a video because we have internet and everything's fine. I ended up posting 2 videos over the course of the last 2 weeks that weren't already pre-scheduled. I had a few scheduled and then couldn't really post, and it took me basically over a week to get 2 videos done and posted. Most of my Peloton video was already filmed. I was just doing like the end part of the video, and part of that I had to use my iPhone because I didn't have power and I didn't have camera batteries charged. It was like a low priority thing to have the camera batteries charged, so I had to film it some on my iPhone, and it was just kind of crazy to, like, in the middle of all of this, be worried about working out because it really like alleviated some stress for me. I was getting pretty panicky during part of our power outages, and the exercise actually helped me. So when we did have power, I did turn to the exercise. I did turn to the yoga and the meditation to calm myself down, and it really helped. Basically, we just had rolling blackouts for 4 days. We didn't know when the power was going to be cut off. We didn't know that the power was going to even be cut off in the beginning. We just learned about it after the fact. And we unfortunately have a fridge that beeps every time the power comes back on. So it caught me off guard in the middle of the night. The first night it happened twice where the power cut off and then cut back on, and that's when the fridge would beep, the cutting back on. So the fridge would start beeping the alarm. I'd have to get up, turn the fridge alarm off, go back to bed, and it happened again. And I was like, wow, what the heck is going on with this? We had already had freezing rain that turned to ice, so we were already trapped in our house. One of our neighbors sent us a video from their security camera sliding out of their driveway and almost hitting our trees because they had no friction, no traction, nothing, just pure ice, and the car just slid, and it was insane. So nobody was leaving, and then the power started cutting off, and during that day, the power cut off like 3 or 4 times, but one of the times was exceptionally long. And this one happened to be like a 4, almost 5-hour stretch. And when it was starting to get a little bit later in the day and there was snow pouring down and we were getting these long extended periods of not having any power, I was starting to get worried because we were trapped, like totally trapped, could not leave. Nobody was leaving and getting in and out, and we were here and we didn't have power. And at some of the points during the power outages, we also didn't have cell service. So we were literally trapped in our house with nothing. And we had our neighbors, thankfully, but we were talking with one of the neighbors and thinking about inviting them over, but we couldn't get out of our house. Like, you couldn't even just walk across the street because it was so icy and dangerous. Nobody could walk across the street. It was just really bizarre. I've never lived through anything like this. We've lived in cold places, but nothing to this where everybody's completely unprepared. And it just showed how unprepared we were for a true emergency. Yeah, we had some candles. Yeah, we have some flashlights and some batteries, but we don't have like camping equipment to keep us warm in the middle of a freezing storm. We're just lucky that our power kept coming back on, and that's really what kept us okay. We do have batteries, so we could have the gas fireplace going because we have batteries to keep the power electric part of it going. You have to have that for a gas fireplace, which I had no idea. I just thought you'd have to like maybe light it with a lighter or something to spark it, but no, you have to have actual power the whole time the gas is on, because he took the batteries out and it stopped working. It has some sort of sensor in it that has to stay on with a battery power. So we learned so many things throughout these 4 days of, we were already trapped in our house a couple days before we lost power, so this was an ongoing thing. We had so much snow, it was ridiculous. I'm going all over the place now, I'm getting frantic thinking about it, but we ended up getting like 6 inches of snow, and it was on the ground for days and days, which is totally unlike here. We've had snow in the past, and then by the next day or even the same afternoon, the snow's all melted because it's still like barely snowing, and then it warms up enough really quickly that we don't have snow just staying on the ground. And this snow was here for a few days because it was freezing temperatures. Oh, also when the power did come back on, sometimes we didn't have internet working very well. Sometimes it was spotty, and I kept getting text messages. My text messages wouldn't even work when the power was off. So when the power would come back on, I'd get some text messages here and there. And then sometimes I could text, sometimes I couldn't text. So it was just really, really bizarre. Really, the whole thing was kind of nightmarish, just thinking about, okay, what if the power doesn't come back on and we're trapped? I was having a lot of panicky thoughts about, okay, if the power doesn't come back on, what are we gonna do? Thankfully, we do have a gas stove top, gas range, so I could light it with the lighter and cook, because sometimes that's how I cooked. We also have a grill with a propane tank, so luckily we had that option as well for cooking, but it was just, we didn't have a whole lot of options for things, and we just made do. We had weird meals some of the time because I didn't want to open the fridge or the freezer when the power was out. I didn't want things to go bad, so I had to cook from the pantry and just use the stovetop for a lot of things. And it was really funny. I pulled some stuff out of the freezer and stuck it outside because it was cold enough outside, but then I could get to it later and I didn't have to open the freezer when the power went out again. So I just put a few things outside and it stayed, you know, food safe, but I didn't have to get into messing with the freezers or the fridge. I had it prepared outside. I could just go grab it out from the snow. So that ended up working really well. We had to be a little bit resourceful, and thankfully, we kept our water the whole time. They did put us on emergency conservation. So they said, like, don't run dishes, don't wash clothes, don't take showers, just like use water for survival. And so we were really strict about sticking to that. So there was like some time throughout there, I didn't take a shower for like 4 days because we were supposed to conserve water, and I was stressed out and trying to use as least as possible because they were worried that our water would run out. So we were taking it really seriously and not showering and not giving the kids baths regularly. And thankfully, we're out on the other side now. There are still some lasting effects. When everything was happening, people were storming the grocery stores, buying out everything. A lot of people lost water, so they actually needed to get water and things. So bottled water was a hard thing to find. And I'll talk about like more long-term lasting effects that affects something coming up. But basically, I just used what we had. Thankfully, we have tons of food. When the power finally was steadily back on again and they sent us a thing like, okay, everything's okay. Unless there's a true power outage just for your house or your little area, the power's back on. They sent out a thing from our energy service. They sent that out. So we got power back and we could cook again, plan out normal things, but then I couldn't get a grocery pickup because people were storming the grocery store, so I held off. We still had a couple of weird random meals, but thankfully we have plenty of food in the house, so I was just making a lot of bagged frozen veggies and things. We had a couple of pasta nights, just like using what we had. It was kind of creative, kind of random stuff. And then I finally was ready to get groceries. I'm like, okay, the madness has probably died down by this point, and I couldn't get a grocery pickup. And the first grocery pickup was for March 1st, which this was like, gosh, I don't know, February 20th or so, like 19th, 20th, when I'm talking about looking for scheduling a grocery pickup, and they're telling me March 1st because it's like all hands on deck. Everybody was stocking the grocery shelves as much as they could, and they didn't have a whole lot of pickup orders, and the pickup orders that they did have spaces for, people just took because people needed groceries. So I just took a step back. We still continued to eat randomness from the house for a couple more days, and I finally ventured out yesterday at nap time to get groceries, and it was like apocalyptic times, and they had stocked some things, plenty of beef, plenty of cheese. There were certain cheeses missing, obviously, but there was enough cheese. There was no cow's milk at all. Thankfully, they did have my protein milk, and they limited everything. Like, you could get 2 different kinds of bread, and there was very few types of bread even on the shelves at the point in time where I was looking at it. So there was like a few bagels, some few random specialty 12-grain breads and things like that. So I did end up with like 2 random breads. Also, I didn't film a grocery haul, by the way. I couldn't. After dealing with all this, I just couldn't muster the energy and emotional stability to film the grocery haul after I went. There were no chips, which was really surprising. I went down a lot of aisles because Olivia's birthday is coming up. So we're planning on having a backyard birthday party, and I couldn't get snacks. So I was going down the snack aisles. Most things are sold out. I got a few various snack things. I couldn't get Stella's whole milk, like not even just, I couldn't get her specialty one that I get that's kind of frou-frou. I couldn't get any. There was no cow milk to be seen, so I didn't end up being able to get that. There was no chicken. I was planning on getting chicken thighs. No chicken, not even one kind of chicken. So I ended up getting a couple of seafoods from the seafood counter because, of course, some of the expensive stuff is left. So I ended up getting a couple of expensive seafood things. I just got shrimp and salmon, so not super duper expensive, but like they didn't have a whole lot there. Thankfully, most of the produce was there. I could make do. Like I had green beans on the list. They didn't have green beans, so I got some other kind of produce, but they had plenty of stuff to eat. It's not like we're gonna starve. It's not like anybody in the area would starve going to the grocery store and seeing what they had. It's just they were out of certain things, and they were limiting a lot of things because I guess people were panic buying. They had no bottled water at all. Completely gone because a lot of people did lose water, and I don't know, hopefully by now most people have their water service back on. It's just the people that need plumbing repairs that don't have their water on because they had leaks in their house. We ended up moving into this house from further into actually the city of Austin, and I'm still on their Facebook neighborhood group, and I was seeing like the pipes bursting. I was seeing the whole neighborhood didn't have water for over a week. And I was just seeing it and just feeling so sick to my stomach, thinking how lucky we are, but also just like checking out everybody, making sure I was connecting with anybody to make sure everybody was okay. Everybody had water and electric because it was extended periods of time for a lot of people. And thankfully they do have water back on now, and they don't have to boil the water now, which is also good. I definitely feel like I lived through something, and I'm a little traumatized by it, even though for us, it wasn't that bad. It was just the possibility that could turn bad at any point because the grid was so unstable, and like the energy company kept sending out things. They're like, when the power comes back on, try to conserve power as much as possible so that we don't have to deal with this for months. Like they're really sending out dire messages to try to conserve as much power as possible. So we were really trying to just like keep our cell phones charged, and that's pretty much it. Like unplugging things. I had everything unplugged. It was just getting scary, apocalyptic seeming, and a couple of people next to us did lose their water for a while because their pipes froze. They freeze. They're not planning for winter weather here, so the pipes are not buried deep enough and they freeze. So we learned that the hard way from some of our neighbors not having water. It was just crazy, and it's still a little bit crazy. Like I went to the grocery store yesterday and they're still out of a bunch of things, and when they get them in, people are buying them. And thankfully I did not have to wait in line at the grocery store, but that's another thing that's been happening. I've been seeing people waiting in line for 30 minutes or an hour just to get groceries, and it's just insane. Like the whole thing is totally insane. And thankfully I didn't have to wait, but it was just a frenzy in the grocery store. Just tons of people just grabbing what they could. And it took me almost 2 hours to go grocery shopping yesterday. 2 hours. It was just insane. And I was like 4 or 5 deep in the checkout line just to check out. Every cashier lane is open, and it's like 4 or 5 deep in every lane. And it was just nuts, and I feel a little bit shaken by the whole thing still, and it'll take a while to get over it. And there are some lasting effects. Like I said, I could not get Stella's whole milk, and I had just like a little bit left in the carton to last a couple of days. And so I talked to the neighbors. I just sent a group text to our little group chain, and I asked, can you please keep an eye out for whole milk? And thankfully somebody had been blessed with an extra thing of whole milk, so they gave us one. So we thankfully have whole milk for Stella. That was like my main concern. We can make do with whatever else, but I want to make sure she's getting the fat and the protein she needs. And we can make do with other things. Like she eats cheese, and the whole milk's not totally necessary, but it's just such an easy way for her to get some of the nutrients she needs. But I'm so thankful that our neighbor was able to gift us one. They were able to get one. And the stores come in and out of stock of things, so I know I just hit them at an unlucky point that all the milk was gone. And then as far as lasting effects, I am supposed to have a birthday party coming up for Olivia this weekend. And I couldn't order things from Amazon. Like I was planning on, first of all, I was planning on having all of last week, which was the Snowpocalypse week. That week, I was planning on going to Costco and getting all the snacks and the juices and things for the party, and also being able to order all the stuff from Amazon and it coming in time. Well, all this stuff happened, totally threw my plans out the window, totally forgot to even order the Amazon stuff until I finally was back on power, and I was like, oh yeah, I need to order her birthday party supplies, and then they couldn't even get here till the weekend. So I had to push her birthday party back to begin with. And then today I call the bakery at the grocery store and I say, hey, I need to order some cupcakes. And they said, oh, we're not doing any custom things in the bakery right now. The bakery's pretty much shut down because they're diverting all of the resources, like all the milk and sugar and eggs and everything that they need for the bakery to the store so that people have it. So they're not even doing bakery stuff. So I'm gonna have to bake the cupcakes. And right now I can't get flour. That's one of the things that was completely out. So thankfully I can get cake mix. Thankfully I can make icing because I have powdered sugar. I can make icing. And so I ordered a few things on Amazon to be able to make cupcakes because I don't even have stuff to make cupcakes. I don't have stuff to put cupcakes in. So I'm going to be making cupcakes and getting everything ready. And hopefully my stuff comes in on time. Thankfully, Amazon's saying, nothing can be delivered until the weekend, but they're actually delivering things early. So all the birthday stuff where I had to push the birthday party back, all the stuff's actually being delivered in the next couple of days. So I will have it before what was supposed to be the day it was supposed to be delivered. All that to say, hopefully the stuff to make cupcakes come in time so that we have cupcakes at a birthday party for my 6-year-old or soon to be 6-year-old. So it's just one of those things that I would never have thought that a snowstorm would derail my cupcake plans for my kid's birthday party at the end of February, but we're still dealing with the after effects of this. And thankfully it's been warm. It's been 70. All the snow melted pretty quickly once it started warming back up. We've been playing outside. Everything seems to be on an everyday level back to normal, but the food scarcity thing is still an issue. Thankfully, we have a lot of food. We're not going to starve. Like I said, even if you go to the grocery store and they don't have all the things you want, you're still not going to starve because they have other food in the grocery store, and they're working really hard to just having delivery trucks all the time. There was somebody scanning the milk thing so that they could reorder all the milk things. And I asked her when they'll have whole milk, and she said, we are getting trucks every day, so just check back every day. And so that was what they gave me. Thankfully, I got some from a neighbor. I'm so lucky that ours was just an inconvenience. And again, my biggest problem now is I didn't get whole milk for my kid, which we could have made without. I also didn't get the cupcakes ordered. In the grand scheme of things, that's an inconvenience. That's nothing. There are people who lost their lives. There are people whose livelihood is ruined. There are people who could not get water. That's a serious thing. People could not get water. So my problems are super teeny tiny in the grand scale, and I just feel so bad for everybody who did get majorly affected by this. For me, it was kind of a wake-up call to make sure we were prepared. We don't have backup stuff if our phones don't have electricity. I don't have a backup thing for my phone. So we ordered one. Now we have a backup thing that cranks and I can charge my phone. But things like that, we weren't prepared. And people were saying when they're freezing, put a tent over your bed and sleep in the tent so you're warm in the tent with each other. We don't have a camping tent. We don't have sleeping bags. We do have blankets, but I don't know what we would have done if the temperatures went down enough that our house got really, really cold. It was already cold enough. We were wearing 3 or 4 layers, and that was with electricity some of the time. So I can only imagine how cold some families got. It's giving me wobbly voice, thinking about it, because I know how cold we were, and we had power on and off, enough to keep us warm. So it was really tough to deal with, and I'm still not ready to film a lot of videos, not ready to come back everything's okay, because we just dealt with this serious thing, and I'm still kind of wrapping my mind around what we just went through. And ours was totally on the lighter side, more of an inconvenience side than a survival devastation side. So I'm just still kind of reeling from it, trying to just thank my lucky stars and chill and exercise a lot, because the exercise definitely helps me power through some of it, and I'm glad that we did have power enough. I'm glad we had some sort of survival stuff. Like, we could still cook, thankfully. That was like a big thing. We could still cook. So I had all this stuff in the freezer, and yeah, we didn't have power, but it was so cold outside, we could have thrown everything in the yard if we had to. Like, if the power stayed off for a while, and it would have stayed frozen in the yard because there was tons of snow on the ground and it was 9 degrees. So we still would have been able to cook. We still would have been fine. Like, we would have managed without power, but it would have been scarier. And I'm glad that power kept coming back on. So, so there were 3 overnights where we dealt with power outages. So the first night, when I was like, whoa, what in the world is happening? Where I woke up twice to the alarm. And then the next night, I also woke up twice to the alarm. And then the 4th night, they cycled the power on every hour. So I woke up like 7 times during the night to the alarm going off on the fridge. I didn't sleep that night. Basically, it's like I felt like my eyes shut and the alarm went off again. So I had to go turn the fridge off. So then that day I had a raging headache, and I took a nap upstairs for a couple of hours while Johnny played with the kids. Thankfully, he was able to like function during the day, but by the morning I was not functioning that day. I was super stressed out, super headachy, needed some sleep, and I got a few hours after he could like take care of the kids and do everything. I got a few hours in to sleep and like be okay. And then the 4th night we unplugged the fridge. Like, we weren't gonna cycle through again. And so that was the 4th night, and then that day the power stayed on. And then that 4th day the power stayed on. So we had to deal with 4 overnights, 3 days of rolling blackouts, and then it was over as far as that goes. The water conservation lasted a few more days after that, and then I think we're okay with water now. We're still kind of trying to, you know, not run the faucets too much or anything. We're definitely more mindful about water usage now, even though we were never like the kind of people that leaves the water running the whole time they're brushing their teeth. We're never that kind of people anyway, but it just is all the more reason to conserve water now and be more mindful of it, because there was a serious possibility the water was going to run out, and it did run out for a lot of people. So it's mind-blowing to me, the whole thing. I'm going to talk politics a little bit, and it's just completely mind-blowing to me that we live in a very affluent place, and this is a problem. This shouldn't be a problem here. Like, we live in a great country, an affluent part of the great country. Power and water should never be an issue. And this was sort of a natural disaster, but it could have been prevented. The disaster part of it could have been prevented. Winterization, that's important. Regulations, those are effing important. And I don't care what side of the spectrum you are on, humans should come before profit. And that really shows with this. You know, they're making things cheap. They're cutting corners because they can. They don't have to have the regulations because Texas joined their own little thing, and they cut all the regulations, they cut all the costs, trimmed it down, and then they f***ed us all over because of that. And so I don't care who was in charge. I don't care what side of the spectrum you're on. Profits should not come before people. And that's exactly what this was, is profits came before people. So I hope things are going to change. I hope there will be more regulations in place. And people were pointing the finger at ERCOT for like letting this stuff slide. ERCOT doesn't have the authority to do the regulations as well as they should. They don't have the power to tell these independent companies what to do. It needs to be actually regulated like all the other states by the government. And I know, and I hate saying that regulation is a good thing, because I totally am for deregulation in some sense. I want not to be regulated. I don't like people telling me what to do personally. I don't like to have to follow a bunch of rules, but sometimes those rules are important when it comes to families having power in the middle of a blizzard every 10 years, because mind you, this happened 10 years ago. Maybe don't pad the billionaires' pockets to cut the winterization. They could afford to put the winterization in place, because people are complaining about the windmills, which are a very small portion of what went wrong here. A lot of it was the natural gas and the nuclear plants. A lot of it was that. It wasn't always just the windmills and the solar power, which a lot of people are blaming for this. Guess what? Canada has windmills. Like, hello? European countries, they have windmills. Like, it's just because we weren't winterized, because we don't have regulations here in Texas, because it's a free-for-all. I don't know what. Come on, people. Like, Come on, this is just common sense on any side of the spectrum. Regulations are important. Winterization is important. If 10 years ago the same thing happened and nothing changed, and then 10 years later it happened again. I hope things will change. I don't know that they will. I think in 10 years maybe this will happen again, but it was just a really eye-opening experience, and from our survival, nobody could come and rescue us. We were stuck out completely on our own, and when push came to shove, we were gonna be okay. But I'm gonna make sure we have tents and make sure we have backup flashlights and backup batteries. I've already ordered quite a few things just to be prepared for the next snowpocalypse, but I want to make sure we have camping gear. I want to make sure we have warm weather everything. We don't have a lot of coats because we don't have to deal with cold weather. We wear shorts and tank tops in December and January most of the time because it's warm here. Nobody was prepared for this because on some level you don't expect it, like I said. But maybe you should have the stuff winterized just in case, because it did happen 10 years ago. And same with me, this was an eye-opening experience. We will be prepared next time. So anyway, I ranted a lot. I just wanted to give you guys all my thoughts. I wanted to tell you guys about our experience. Thankfully, we're okay. We're gonna be okay. We've got food, we've got water. We don't need heat anymore because it's 70 degrees today. But we have heat if we need it. So that's it. That's all I got. It's a random video. I just wanted to put something up because the last thing that went up was my Peloton video, and I barely got that up between power outages. It's it would upload for a little while, the power would go out, it would start uploading again when I got internet back and power back, and it took me forever to even get it up, but I needed something to focus on, so it really did help to finish it, to edit it, to upload it, to get everything done. It helped to have it to concentrate on during this. We donate regularly to the Central Texas Food Bank. If you are willing and able, I would love it if you would donate and chip in anywhere you can. The food banks are hurting. People are already hurting because of pandemic stuff, and this was just so devastating to so many people in Texas. So I just want to put that out there. I'll leave the Central Texas Food Bank link down below, but there are plenty of other organizations that are trying to do good work right now, and people really need it. So if you're blessed enough to be able to help out any way you can, please do so. So that's it. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I will catch you sometime. I'm not even scheduling any videos. I don't have any videos planned. I'm not working on anything. I'm just chilling. I just wanted to get this video up to let you guys know how it went, that we're okay. Things are kind of getting back to mostly normal. I hope you guys are doing well, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.